This is Jennifer Tilghman with the Tilghman team of Keller Williams Preferred Properties. And just as we've been doing every month, bringing you information from one of our partners, today we have Prime Title Group and we have Lawrence Elliott, who's going to be talking to us today about title and why title is so important. So, Lawrence, would you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into working with title?
Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this morning. Title. How did I get into title? Well, when I went to law school, like many law students, I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought I was going to, I wanted to do something in entertainment or sports. But while I was there, I definitely had an affinity for property law. And I still didn't really know what that really meant in terms of a job. But maybe about a year after graduating, I was doing temp work with a company, and a gentleman from my church approached me and told me that he and a group were putting together a title company to work with this mortgage company. I had never heard of that before, but he explained what a title company was. Again, I went through law school, never even heard of a title company. So I didn't know anything about it. He gave me a kind of a background. I said, that definitely sounds like something that I'd like to do. We're working with a lot of first-time home buyers. You're working with people, helping them realize their dream of home ownership. So for me, I wanted to do something that was meaningful, and I could sleep at night in terms of, not having to do anything unethical and so forth. And so when that opportunity came up, I said, I'm going to pursue it. Ironically, that particular opportunity never came to fruition, but it definitely focused me. And I said, okay, so this is what I want to do. Let me find out how to pursue that. And I started looking up title companies, and eventually I was able to get a job at a title company in Old Town Alexandria at the time. And I started from the very, very bottom. I was doing post-closing, doing processing, but it really gave me a good understanding of the totality of the business and understanding everything that goes into running, operating, and working in a title company. So I look at it as great. A gift from God, really, to help me get focused. And once I've gotten into it, I've done other things. I've done some bankruptcy, and I've done some wills, trust, estate work, but it all had a real estate theme to it. So I've stayed in that for 20 plus years, and at this point, I don't think I could do anything else.
Okay.
But title. But I definitely enjoy it, and I plan on doing it as long as possible.
That's good. And we've been working together for many years, and any kind of question that I have around title, I call I call you guys because you're a great partner to have, and so it's a pleasure to even be affiliated and working with you. So let me ask you, because I guess many times buyers and sellers would want to know, when you guys get a sales contract, what actually happens when the contract comes into prime title?
Great question. So when we get the contract, what we do is we order a title search, and we coordinate with all the other parties. So we coordinate with the lender, we coordinate with both agents, and so we order a title search just to see if there are any liens on the property, to see if there's any judgments against the seller, to see if a seller actually owns a property. I've actually had a settlement where we got to the table to find out that the person who was selling the property was the tenant and was not the actual owner.
Wow.
So we go through that whole process, but once we get the title work back, we go through it. We see if there's any liens, judgments, and I would say maybe 45% of the title work comes back with some type of cloud on title. So we work to either clear that. We want to make sure, sometimes people have, the seller may have a common name, so it may not be that individual, that John Williams or something like that. Well, there'll be a judgments against a person of a similar name, but it may not be our seller. So we just go through the process of clearing that title. We order a survey on the property so we can see the property lines. And I think it's important for every buyer to know exactly what they're buying. We've had situations as well where you may, particularly like if you're in the country, you don't see it as much on lot and block neighborhoods,
Mm-hmm.
but you may assume you know where the property line is. You assume it's the tree line out there, or you assume it's the fence. And then the survey reveals that those, in fact, are not the property lines. And so it's important, I think, to get that as well. So
Right.
we order the title search, we order the survey, and then we coordinate with the lenders to get the loan package done. We provide title insurance for that lender because they're not going to lend you money without making sure that their loan amount is insured.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They're just not going to do it. And we also offer an owner's policy to the buyer as well. That way, if anything were to come up, you know, you'd be completely protected. And
Mhm.
I think I personally would not buy a property without title insurance because it covers everything. So, and there's no way we can know 100% or guarantee 100% that there will never be an issue that comes up with that property. So, uh,
And how long does that insurance last?
mhm. Insurance lasts as long as you own it.
Okay.
So it's a one-time fee, um, and it covers you as long as you own the property up to that purchase price.
Mhm.
The enhanced policies actually increase in value over time. So you may think, well, why would I need it? Most people, the experience they have where they would need title insurance is maybe the seller had a lien that may have hit right before settlement, so it
Mhm.
wouldn't show up on the title search. We've had that
Mhm.
happen. We've had uh, issues where we have a deed, and then in the history of the deed, maybe one of the heirs didn't sign the deed, and we wouldn't know that. And in fact, that's a real issue. We've
Mhm.
had where in D.C., as a matter of fact, you had 5 kids that were the heirs to a property. They sign off, and then we find out a year or two later that there was a alleged 6th child that was
Mm.
not um, given an opportunity to sign their interest. So if you're a homeowner and you get this letter that this person wants to sue, that can be very terrifying for that
Mhm.
person. But if you have the title insurance, you're completely protected. That pays even for the attorney's fee. So the title insurance, I mean, if when you think about it, maybe it's $1,200 or $1,300 depending on the sales price. Well, I mean, that's an hour and a half of an attorney's time.
Right.
So I think it's valuable. You don't need it unless you need it, but when you do need it, you really
You
need
really
it.
need it. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
one of those situations.
Yeah, I like how you put that. And just talking about, you were mentioning the survey that you guys do the survey.
Hmm.
I know that there's probably times where, after they see their lot, their plan, that you realize that maybe your neighbor's driveway is either on your property, or your driveway is on your neighbor's property, and then sometimes you have some situations around that as well, right?
Yeah, that definitely comes up. Again, when you have a what I call a PUD neighborhood or planned unit neighborhood, you don't see it at quite as much because those are subdivided as a homeowners association. But definitely in the country, you see it a lot.
Mhm, mhm,
Where there's confusion over the lot size, and people just they cut their grass. That's how we identify the
mhm.
property lines, is where they stop cutting. I assume that's their yard, and then I pick it up right there.
Right.
But I get calls all the time. Well, this person's fence is on my yard, or there's a tree. I'll give you a real life situation that happened several years ago. We were doing a settlement for a church, and they were selling to another church. And the contract had a one tax ID number, and it had also had a street address. So we did the search on that tax ID and on that street address, and everything was fine. But the survey revealed that that property line only covered a portion of the parking lot, and the whole rest of the parking lot, it was not included in that tax ID number. And then when we inquired, we found out there was technically two properties that should have been conveyed. And
Mhm.
so we caught that because of the survey. And when I showed it to the new pastor, I said, "Wait a minute, this doesn't look right. Are you sure this is all you're buying?" He said, "No, there's a whole nother part of the driveway that's missing." So we went back to the seller, and they said, "Oh, you know what? That's right. There are two tax ID numbers." So we were able to do the search on the other one. But without that, we would have just conveyed the one, and
Right.
the seller would have still technically
Oh.
owned
Mhm.
that parking lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was intentional, or I have no
Mhm.
idea. But
Yeah.
again, when you're dealing with, especially as you get a higher dollar value, or if the lines are important, if there's any confusion, you want to make sure that you sign off and that you see that survey.
Right, right. It's so important, I guess, to do all of that, the insurance as well as the survey, all of the things that you guys do. So one other question that I know I get sometimes is how should a person take title to a property? There's different
Mhm.
ways to take title to a property.
Yeah, yeah, great question. This definitely causes confusion for people, but there's basically three ways. So if you are spouses, if you're married, there's a designation called tenants by the entirety, and tenants by the entirety is just for spouses. And it gives you the right of survivorship. So if one spouse dies, the property automatically goes to the survivor without having to open probate. They own the property outright. If they want to sell the property, all they'd have to do is show a death certificate. Tenants by the entirety offers a lot of protection as well, because if you have a lien against one spouse and not the other, it can't attach to the property. The
Mhm,
only thing that can sever that is IRS tax lien.
mhm,
So that's that. We use that for spouses. There's another tenancy called joint tenancy, and this is similar to tenants by the entirety in that it has the right of survivorship. And you see this with siblings, maybe a brother and sister own a property. Um, and same thing, if the property, if one of the owners dies, it automatically goes to the survivor. You have this also with parents and children. A lot of
mhm,
times they'll do joint tenants, because I get calls all the time where a parent says, "I want to add my son or daughter to the title. They're getting older and they don't want to have to go through probate."
mhm.
So we'll add the son or daughter to title, and it's a joint tenancy. So if the father dies, it automatically goes to the child.
Mhm.
And then there's a designation called tenants in common. This is really more for business. So what this means, and also joint tenants protects you against most liens as well.
Mhm.
Maryland tax liens and IRS, of course, can still sever it. Those still attach. But if one of the owners has a credit card bill and the other one it does not, then it cannot attach to the property. So there is definitely a protection. Tenants in common is has really no protection. And tenants in common is when you're going to see that more for businesses. So if you and I were to buy a property, and of course, since you have so much more money than me, you put up 80% of the money.
Mhm.
So you can own 80% of the property. I own 20%, something like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
So that's a designation where it's the only one that allows you to have a percentage other than an equal share.
Okay.
Okay,
Mhm.
so you'll
Mhm.
see that in business for business relationships. You can't be a 60% owner and a 40% owner if it's joint tenants.
Okay.
So tenants in common, and that does not have any protection. So if you have a lien, if I have a lien, it attaches to the property,
Everything.
and
Mhm.
there's no right of survivorship. So if I die, then my 20% in the scenario I gave you goes into my estate. And
Mhm.
so then my estate now owns 20% of the property, and they have to convey that out, however you're going to do that. So you see that more for business
Businesses. Okay.
relationships. Yep. And
Okay.
of course, I forgot the last one is sole owner, but
Right.
sole owner is kind of
Yeah,
self-explanatory.
sole owner.
Yeah.
All right. So, in doing all your title work, all these years, what's been your biggest challenge, you feel?
That's a great question as well. These challenges have changed over the course of 20 years. It's amazing how different the business is now than
Mhm.
it was when I first started. When I first started, we had paper for everything. We weren't even, late 90s, we weren't even using faxes. There was no internet that we were using. Everything, the packages were overnighted to us. Um, and since then, now we use technology for everything. So everything is stored virtually. But the biggest issue right now, I think, facing most title companies is the threat of false wires,
Mm,
fake wiring instructions, and AI is terrifying for
mm,
most of us
mhm,
because the identity theft is so rampant. So right now, if you were to email us, you would see on my email and anyone who's associated with Prime Title, when we email you back, there's a warning on the bottom of that email about wire fraud. So
mhm.
what's happening now in the industry, and every title conference that I attend, they start off talking about wire fraud. And this is really good for agents. So if you have any agents that are listening to this, you really need to pay attention now because agents are the number one target here. But what
Right.
happens is because agents are communicating with their clients, they're communicating with the title company, they're communicating with the lender and with the listing agent or buyer's agent, whichever side you're on. You're getting emails from everybody.
Right.
So hackers are targeting agents, and if they get into your system, then they just sit back and watch the emails go back and forth. And we've actually had this happen. We had an agent who was hacked, and the day before settlement, they received wire instructions from Prime Title,
Mhm.
allegedly, and it looked like our logo. It looked like our wire instructions because, again, they were watching all the emails, and it basically said the wire instructions here are the new or the revised wiring instructions.
Okay.
So please send your down payment here. So that buyer, thinking that it's from us, will send the down payment that they have to make to the fake Prime Title. Of course, it's not coming to us. And
Mhm.
this can present, I mean, you can lose a lot. There was a title company in DC where the property was $2 million. They had sold a property, so their down payment was over $1 million,
Wow. Mhm.
and it was a very popular case. And they wired over $1 million to hackers, and based on fake wiring instructions. So this is really, really terrifying. Again, for real estate agents, you guys are prime for it because most agents, they work from home or they have their laptops, desktops, but may not be as secure as what some other bigger
Mhm.
companies
Right.
may do in terms of the firewalls and protections and so forth. And again, once they're in, the hackers just sit back and watch, and they wait and they wait and they wait.
Yeah.
So for us, we tell people, and we advise them. One, we send them the wire instructions in the very, very first email they receive from us,
Mhm.
and we tell them the wire instructions will not change.
Right.
If you get any email that says they've changed, it is fake. And you
Mhm.
can tell. You may not pay attention, but you can tell when you see the email that it's not from us if you really investigate it.
Right.
So they do not change. And also we advise agents to advise their clients to call us to verify the wire instructions. So you say, hey, look, I'm about to send $50,000 over for closing. My closing's in 2 days. I just want to verify the wiring instructions with you, and then we'll do that over the phone, to make sure that you have the
Mhm.
correct ones. But
Right.
that is the one that keeps me up at night.
Yeah, yeah, I guess it does. And that's great information. And agents are looking at this, so I will just make sure that we continue to communicate this with agents to be in a
Hmm.
secure location, secure computer environment, so that yeah, and just follow the lead that you give. Yes, yes, yes. And then, so, based on all of that, I know, there are challenges in our work, but there are also some joys. So let's wrap this up by, asking you, what is your biggest joy? And I know you have that background ringing, but that's okay.
Yeah,
I mean, we're working, right?
yeah.
We're
I got to
working.
find a way to mute that.
Yeah.
Biggest joy is definitely first time home buyers, and just being part of that process. When you buy a home, you know this. This is probably the most stressful purchase for them, because you're going to spend more on your house than you will on anything else. Uh, but it's definitely the first time home buyers, and we taken pictures after settlement, and we've had people that, I had a gentleman that was, I want to say, he's a little over 80, and it was his first time ever buying a house,
Right.
and I mean we prayed with him. I mean it was just an amazing feeling, and I have colleagues that are attorneys that just don't get to have that experience because
Yeah.
of the type of law they practice. And so I definitely get a real joy out of that. And I've done some home buyer seminars, and when I do home buyer seminars, I go all the way back to FHA. I go back to redlining. I talk about how important it is to own homes and own real estate. And
Mhm.
so just being able to play a small part in helping people realize the dream of home ownership and help them to build generational wealth, I think this is the best way to do that.
Mhm.
uh, that definitely is the upside for me, and that's what keeps me from burning out of what could be a very stressful profession. Is
Yeah.
is those moments with people that buying their first home, or just buying their dream home, even if they're upgrading.
Right. Yeah. And I can relate to that as well. I really see this work as ministry work because, first of all, they're inviting us into their homes, their families, and buying their one of their biggest investments, and we're helping them do that process so that they can have home ownership. So
Right, right.
it's great. Well, Lawrence, it's been wonderful speaking with you. Is there anything else that you might want to leave the audience with as we end our conversation today?
I will give a shout out to the great agents out there doing the work, people like yourselves.
Right.
And I commend you on understanding, because you have to know a little bit about everything.
Mhm.
You want to know a little bit about what the lender's doing, what I'm doing, the home inspector. And so I just want to commend you guys, because you're really on the front lines when it comes to working with these buyers and sellers. And we're just here to assist you. And um, and uh, we- you know I, I always appreciate working with great agents like yourself. So
Mhm.
anytime that's why I answer anytime you call you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'll
thank you.
definitely take it to Tillman team, and tell the good deacon that I said hello as well.
I will. I will. Well, it's been a pleasure. And if the audience would like to reach each of us, here is our information. Debbie is going to put it out there. So this is how you can reach both Lawrence Elliott as well as the Tillman team in the future for any information and resources. And we are very happy to present this to you today. So thank you, and be looking out in the future for our next interview as well as some events that are coming along. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Take care.